Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This person has created a device that eliminates the hassle of mealtime and everyday activities with your toddler. Please help me welcome the CEO and the founder of Busy Baby, Beth Beneke. How's it going, Beth?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for giving me some time here to talk about your journey as well as your the flagship product with the Busy Baby mat, but also other products that you have also kind of created as well to kind of fill out the product line. I guess typically what I like to do, at least at the beginning, was to see if you can maybe describe, the product or at least the Busy Baby mat product so that the audience have an idea of what it is that we're talking about and we'll put you, on a map.
Yeah, sure. So it all started about 7 years ago. I had my first baby and went out to lunch with some girlfriends. Their kids were cute, but dropping their stuff and room for everything on the table, huge distraction. So I went online to order something for my son that would be a clean place for his food and keep the toys attached, and it didn't really exist. So an idea popped in my head, and I designed a mat that you can suction down to the high chair at the table, and it has a tether system to attach their things so they can't drop them and throw them on the floor. And then since then, we've expanded the product line to 8 other products that accomplish that same mission.
Nice. So then I guess maybe a question that I want to ask at the beginning is, did your girlfriends who you was the inspiration for it, did they use the product at the beginning, or were they hesitant to use it since you did create it for them, or at least they gave you the inspiration to create the mat?
Right. They inspired the idea. At the time, their kids were 1. And I didn't know that it was going to be a business at that time. I just knew I needed something for my son. And so when I made my first prototype, which I didn't know was a prototype then, but I made a prototype for myself. And then one of my girlfriends had a baby 8 days after me. So I made one for her. And that was really the end of it. That's all it was going to be. And then she reached out to me a little bit later, my friend, and said, "Oh my God, I forgot that mat thingy last night. It was horrible. I didn't realize how useful it was until I didn't have it. Like, you need to make that thing for real." And that's kind of when the business idea started.
So I guess that's interesting. So when you made the prototype, you said you made that for, one of your girlfriends, or were you just trying to maybe come up with something for yourself when you made the first prototype?
No, I made it for myself, and then I made another one for her. So I just made 2 of the same thing and gave one to my friend.
Nice. And then at what point did you say, hey, this is like a real life business, or this is something that I need to make a business out of it? I know you talked about that, the friend who called back, reached back out to you to say, hey, I left this thing at home and I didn't realize how great this thing was. Can you essentially make me another one? At that point in time, did like the light bulb go off for you to say, okay, I really have something on my hands here, or maybe not at that moment?
Yeah, it was January in Minnesota when she reached out to me. So it was real cold. I wasn't doing anything, stuck in the house. My son was still less than 1 year old. And I just kind of thought how would I make this thing for real? She says I should make it for real. How would I even do that? And it got me started down the path of figuring out how to take an idea and turn it into an actual product.
Nice. And what were some of those things that you did? I know these days Google University is everyone's friend, and be able to just, whatever you need, just type it in Google and have an answer, be spit back at you. Was that something that you leaned on heavily at the beginning, or was it friends and family? Or what was some of those steps that you took at the beginning to kind of figure out what was going on, or the next steps in the process for you to make this thing into an actual business?
Yeah, it was actually a company called Bunker Labs. I'm an Army veteran, and their mission is to help Army veterans or military veterans and their families who want to start businesses. Like, they help you start your business.
Nice.
So I found that Bunker Labs had a 12-week entrepreneurship course that they were opening up, and I joined it and started learning the first steps of how to start a business. And then I went to a consumer trade show for baby products, and I just walked the show and talked to other brands that were there, asked them about their story. How did they get their product to become a reality? And they shared their stories with me and gave me some advice. And that's kind of how it all started. Nice.
And maybe going back to the Army, the veteran side of things, because I do have a younger brother I think he recently just got out of the Army, but he was in there for a number of years and was deployed a number of times. And I know with Memorial Day just passed here, first and foremost, congrats and thank you for the service. But again, being in the military, and you're very close with your brother, who, from my understanding, was also in the military as well, correct?
Yep.
Nice. So then, I guess in the transition outside of the military and kind of going through this whole thing, I would imagine that it was somewhat overwhelming, especially since I guess the previous life or the prior life was completely different compared to owning a business, running a business, starting a business. So I guess how did you, I guess, get over the feeling
that transition?
Of being overwhelmed? Exactly.
Yeah, it was a long transition. I was in the military for 10 years. I would say it took about 5 years to acclimate to being a civilian again. I went to school, got a degree, got a regular corporate job. And finally, I was 40 when I met my now husband, and we accidentally got pregnant with the first one. And that's when the idea came to be. So it took several years to adjust to civilian life from the Army. And then from there, I was already just working a corporate job, kind of bored with that.
So and I would imagine that just coming from the Army and all that action, especially, it seems like, again, if I recall correctly, that you were actually deployed. So, just experience all that has to entail, and then coming back and just doing a corporate thing, the 9 to 5 thing. It seems like that's like a stark difference to the point where, like you said, it's like, man, this is boring.
Yeah. At first the security was great and having control over my own life. The military, that they tell you where to move and where you get to live and when you get to deploy. And so at first it was nice being home, having control over my own life. And then, it got boring. I moved 14 times in 10 years when I was in the military. So sitting around in one spot for so long got a little stagnant.
Well, and that's, I guess that's a good point. I always tell my brother, look, respect you guys for what you did, but that's the only thing that would have prevented me, at least at this point in time, maybe not looking to go into the military, but back then, early on, because being at Michigan State, coming up, engineering, as well as law school, it was maybe some opportunities to go there. But I guess the big thing that I just couldn't get over was just not being in control of my time. Like you said, somebody telling you where to go or when to sleep. It was like something about that I just couldn't,
it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It was for me at that time, though. It was what I needed in my life at that time.
For sure. And it seems like, I guess a lot of people, as they're maybe earlier on and trying to figure it out, that's a good way to be able to kind of get paid and figure it out at the same time. So I guess, is it a lot of veterans? Because you said that there was this program that was encouraging people or helping people start a business. Do a lot of people take advantage of the program, not necessarily just with the business, but when they invented some type of novel product to, get a patent on it and all that stuff and kind of start a business from it? Because it seems like, at least I haven't heard anything like that up until this point in time, which is cool. And that's great. Do you think a lot of people take advantage of that type of program or similar programs offered by the military?
Yeah, I mean, it's not offered by the military. It's just designed for military veterans. And it's a nationwide program. It's it's grown significantly over the years. It's a huge, actually, I think Bunker Labs was just acquired by Syracuse State University in New York. So it's been now absorbed by an actual university. It's an amazing program. I think there's a stat 1 in 5 veterans actually wants to start their own business.
Wow.
But not very many actually do, because it's really hard to start your own business. So,
for sure. No, and I was going to say, it seems like, ask you this question. You said that maybe initially with the job security, with the corporate job was okay, but it got to a point where it was like it was boring. So being a business owner, would you prefer that compared to the corporate job, even though it was maybe secure but boring?
I think I like as hard as it is, I like the entrepreneurship. I like the uncertainty. And the one thing I learned in the military was resourcefulness and how to just use every resource possible to accomplish a mission. And that's what I get to do in this. And it feels more natural to me than just following the rules that have always been the rules, because that's the way we've always done it, kind of corporate thing.
Yep.
This feels more natural to me, to adapt and overcome and roll with the punches and figure it out as we go.
No, and that's an interesting statement. Do you think that, I know everybody is different, and but I guess the military seems like they train you all to be a certain way. Do you think more veterans would have that same mindset that you have, as far as, okay, maybe being resourcefulness and more entrepreneur-like, as opposed to the corporate 9 to 5? Because it seems like it's such a stark difference that people really don't get a chance to fully maybe buy in or transition in a way that that someone such as myself would think. So I guess maybe the question is, do you think that the military prepares you more so for entrepreneurship as opposed to a corporate job, or it just kind of depends on your personality?
Yeah, I mean, everything depends on the individual's personality. But one thing the military is good at is, if you've been through the military, you've learned how to learn, if that makes sense. Like, none of us goes into the military with the skill set needed to do the job we eventually end up doing in the military. So someone goes in as a heavy wheel mechanic. They didn't go into the military with that skill set, but they learned how to do it. And you're constantly learning how to learn new skills throughout your career in the military. So when you get out of the military and you do take on entrepreneurship, you're constantly facing new challenges and having to learn new things. And I know how to learn new things. Like, whatever it is, like, yep, I'm going to have to learn it. I'm going to have to figure it out. I've done this before. So I'm not intimidated by having to learn new things, where someone in a corporate structure who just has followed guidelines that are preset and determined, you're not forced to learn anything new. You just follow the plan. And so it's not always, I don't think entrepreneurship is as good of a fit for someone with a corporate career versus someone who may have been in the military.
Nice. And what would you say was maybe, I guess, the biggest difference, or the thing that kind of was really a transition for you, going even from, say, the military to and having your own business and being an entrepreneur? Was it anything that was like, man, I don't want to say that the military didn't prepare you for it, but it was still like, this is a tough one to maybe get over the hump or overcome and kind of get adjusted to as it relates to entrepreneurship?
Health insurance.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the military, you have full benefits. You get sick, you go into the clinic, they give you what you need, they take care of you. You don't have to have deductibles and preferred provider networks, and you just go to the hospital or the VA, wherever you just go, they take care of you, it's covered. So getting out of the military and then going, corporate job, I had to deal with, like, we had benefits. I had to figure out how to use them. But then going into entrepreneurship, there's nothing. You got to figure it out, and it's not fun, and I'm not prepared for it, and I still don't like it.
And I heard that, again, I kind of have health insurance and all those benefits through the law firm, even though I'm doing some entrepreneurial endeavors. It seems like I heard that the amount that you spend is egregious being a full-time entrepreneur, getting those benefits as opposed to maybe corporate job or the military.
Yeah.
So then I guess the program, did it help you with, I guess, IP, or maybe even backing up before that? Did you know anything about the intellectual property beforehand? And I would imagine maybe that you did, because I know kind of we'll get off into the Shark Tank stuff a little later, but you had made the video of, hey, you watching Shark Tank and saying one day you're going to be on there. So kind of, did you already know a little bit about intellectual property kind of leading up to developing a product, and obviously you have to go get a patent on it and things like that, or was all that new to you at that point in time?
No, I didn't know anything about it. One of the things I did in the very beginning months of my business is I did these pitch events. There's another organization called 1 Million Cups, and it's just allows you to go to a place on Wednesday mornings, and if you apply and they pick you, you can get 5 minutes to pitch your company. And then there's people in the audience that are other entrepreneurs or retired business people that offer advice and guidance and feedback. And one of them was a patent attorney. And somebody asked a question about IP, and I didn't have an answer because I didn't know anything about it. And the guidance that I got from a patent attorney in this setting was, that's probably not patentable. You should focus your time and money and energy on being first to market and not worry about the patent.
So hold on, a patent attorney told you this about your product?
Mm-hmm. He said it's probably not patentable. It's not very likely. So with the, being a very brand new entrepreneur with no budget, still working my full-time job, and the money I had left over after the mortgage and daycare and whatever was all I had to do the business. I listened to him for a bit, and then I was about $16,000 into the development of my product. So a few months down the road, I'm spending money, we're doing CAD drawings. And another one of these events, I met a different patent attorney, and he said, "What did your patent search show?" And I was like, what's a patent search? He's like, "You haven't done a patent search?" I said, I don't even know what that is. And he said, how much money are you into this already? And I said, $16,000.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's
and he said, okay, you are going to want to do a patent search right now. And so that's where I learned that, you should first do a search to make sure what you're creating doesn't already have a patent, because just because I didn't see it on the market, just because I didn't see it for sale anywhere, doesn't mean that it wasn't already protected as an idea. And so we conducted a patent search, and he told me about Google Patents. And if you want, you can go ahead and go search yourself. But unless you know the very unique language of patent writing, you're not going to discover all the things to discover. And it is a foreign language. I mean, it's written in English, but it's a foreign language, the way patents are written. And so I think I ended up paying $600 for a legitimate patent search done by someone who that's what they do. And it revealed that there was prior art. There were previous things that were submitted, but none of them had been written. None of them had gone through all the steps to write the patent. So I was fortunately in the clear to continue to move forward with our project. And then that's when I began doing the patent, the IP work for my product, and creating, I think we started with a provisional utility patent and then went from there. And now I think we have 12 issued patents and a few,
that's legit.
A few pending, or a few still in the works, and then some open continuations. But it's become a big part of our business.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I guess maybe before I get off into what I was going to say, I have a funny story. Joe Rogan, his podcast, Terrence Howard, the actor, was just on there, and he was talking about how he had some patents. And I had did a reactionary video to that clip of Terrence Howard telling Joe Rogan that he had patents, and Joe Rogan had pulled up the patent and read the abstract, and like you said, it has all this fancy terminology and language, and Joe was like, "Wow, you created all this." And I was saying on a reactionary video that, hey, it sounds fancy, and he should give more credit to his attorney for that, because that's kind of our job to kind of make this document, even though, like you said, it's in English, is to make it sound sophisticated, and a lot of times it's typically not meant for just the average person reading it, because they're not going to know what's in that thing outside of maybe it kind of has all this fancy language and language that you're not used to talking about. But maybe going back to the patentability search, or the first patent attorney who told you that it's probably not patentable. I'm more aligned with the second patent attorney that you came across with, unless I've seen the actual thing that the exact same thing that maybe you came out with. I'm typically not telling somebody that it's probably not patentable. I'm going to say, hey, you probably should at least do a patentability search before you continue to spend money on it. But to actually tell somebody that it's not patentable without knowing exactly, or without you having seen something that that is essentially the same thing is kind of what you're looking at the moment. I just think, man, it seems like that.
It was bad advice. It was bad advice from that first one.
And just to the extent, if you would have listened to that person, I'm pretty sure your life has been great as a result of not listening to that person, but that could have made everything go in a completely different direction, which was, and that's unfortunate. That sucks that I told you that. And then kind of coming into this point in time, like you said, you have 12 issued patents, a number of continuations, and so forth and so on. So you've really kind of built a nice patent portfolio based off your products. I guess there's one thing, and like I said, we'll get off into the Shark Tank stuff a little later, but even Rob, I think on Shark Tank was like, I'm surprised you have a patent on things. And I guess I had maybe wanted to say to that is a lot of times people think that one good thing about patent law is, okay, maybe you have these individual products, but the system overall, and it seems like maybe from my understanding, you have more of the Busy Baby Mat is more of a system claim than anything of kind of these different parts, how they attach to each other and whatnot. But that system can be a differentiator compared to even though the examiner at the USPTO or someone has these individual parts, if they don't have the system and how the parts go, are secured to each other overall, then that's something that you can get a patent on, and is novel and different from maybe what's out there. So
exactly.
And so it seems like that's maybe was one of the big things that kind of really helped you out. So then I guess maybe going forward, so you have this patent, and this thing deals with toddlers or babies, and we know that babies are had all over the world, not just here in the U.S. Did you consider or think about or actually file patents or patent applications abroad, or did you just focus all your attention here in the U.S.?
I have a utility model in China. I wish that I had done
PCT,
what is it, under the Madrid thing, like
PCT application.
Yeah, I wish we had done that in the beginning. I didn't have the money, and I had already just spending the money to do the process before I was spending the money to do this before I even sold my first product. And because it's a product that never existed before, I didn't have any confidence that it was actually going to do well.
Right.
So it was really hard to make that decision to spend a lot more money for the PCT. And I didn't. And when I did finally decide that we probably should do that, I finally have the product here. I'm selling it. The response is great. And it was just past the 1 year mark where you can no longer do it. So,
and this is an interesting question, because I bet the last 3 or 4 guests that I had, they kind of talked about the same thing, where this was maybe not just a product that was a hit here in the U.S., but a potential hit abroad, but they just missed that deadline. I know you said in your situation that you were spending a ton of money before even you actually filed the patent application. So I guess if you had to do it all over again, would you have filed the patent application first, maybe file the PCT applications, and then maybe continued on with the development and the manufacturing of the product, or how would you have done things differently if you had to do it? Have you had a chance to do it all over again?
I mean, hindsight's 20/20. I totally would have done the PCT right away. But I had no idea at the time that the product was going to be as well received as it has been.
For sure. So do you still maybe sell abroad, even though maybe weren't kind of missed that filing date?
Yeah. Yeah, we have international customers. We don't do any international distribution. We just literally have people who come to our website and pay the crazy shipping costs to ship it to Australia and other places. But we haven't pursued any international distribution yet.
Nice. No, so then, and I guess for maybe just to kind of clear up maybe a point that I made last, and a lot of people really don't maybe understand this about patents. A patent doesn't allow you to do anything. I mean, allow you to do anything. You can sell your product without a patent, but a patent is more of an exclusionary right to allow you to exclude others from making it or using it or selling the product. But again, obviously, you have to make sure you're not infringing on anybody else's patent to the extent that you are filing it. So I did want to maybe kind of clear that up.
And our patent actually first came in handy. So to the kind of the shift over to the Shark Tank thing, I knew once I aired on Shark Tank, I knew that there was probably a 1 to 2 month period of time before some knockoffs would start showing up. I knew some other people had been on the show, and that's what happened. And so I was shocked when a month before we aired, we saw our first knockoffs.
Really?
And so fortunately, we were able to get in. Amazon's got a patent protection program. We were able to get into that program. And I think we've taken down well over 200 different products that have popped up on Amazon that are knockoff versions of ours. There's some up there now that we kind of just let be up there because they're garbage and they just make us look better.
Right.
But for the most part, the patents have come in very handy to keep the knockoffs off of Amazon.
No, yeah, and that's, man, one of the great platforms or great things about the Amazon platform is that they do have that Apex program that allows you to get the knockoffs taken down. I know I was interviewing Nightcap and some of the other guests on Shark Tank, and they maybe they had issues with Alibaba or Shein and some of the other platforms that essentially just kind of let that stuff goes without getting involved at all. And hopefully at some point the U.S. The government they maybe do kind of get involved, maybe pass some legislation, because just the patent laws were, I don't want to say they're antiquated, but they were kind of made in a time where, okay, if you were selling your stuff in the stores and you were patent infringing somebody else's patent, then it was easy to get your stuff taken down and avoided. But it isn't really applicable to e-commerce. And hopefully, I guess the government and the federal government and Congress will not pass some laws to help out with e-commerce. platforms because it's tough. Like you said, over 200. That's crazy to have to do this over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And again, at some point, I know Amazon does a good job at allowing that stuff to get taken down. But at some point, I guess Amazon or one of these other platforms, do you just do something about it to make it more of a rigorous process to even get something put on Amazon?
Yeah.
So I guess that's something that I think they will figure out at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I guess going back to the Shark Tank thing, what was the mindset, or what was that process, the thought process to say, okay, let's even go on Shark Tank?
One, it was just a cool thing to do. Like Shark Tank is just kind of cool. I think you saw in my episode, they showed a video of me when I was making my first prototypes. I was watching the show and I was like, I'm going to be on Shark Tank someday. It's just a cool American dream type process of like, you have this organic idea and then you can turn it into a real thing and maybe get on this platform where these investors can help you. And so I was really hoping to have gotten a deal with Mr. Wonderful and Lori to do some licensing potentially with my products, and then also expand the product line and get into bigger retail. In the end, Mr. Wonderful was not interested. Lori made an offer, but it did not align with my goals for the business at all. So I ended up walking away.
And that's interesting because I think it seems like maybe from what I recall from watching it, she had maybe wanted to license it. What was, I guess, where things kind of was alignment between you and Lori?
She had another product that had been on the show that was a spoon, a teething spoon for babies. Yeah. And she had just licensed that product to Munchkin, which is a big baby brand. And she wanted to do that same deal with my Busy Baby mat. What you didn't get to see on TV is I had my second product. I had the prototype with me and I showed them the prototype and I talked to them about how I wanted to expand the product line. And she said, no, I don't have any interest in that. I just want to license this to Munchkin. They'll take over production. They'll take over everything. You just sit back and let the money roll in. Yeah. Well, at the time, the upfront guarantee potential would have still left me in debt for, all my product development and coming to market. And then there's no guarantee that Munchkin would actually produce and sell the product well. So it just, to me, wasn't, I knew I wanted to expand the product line to more products. So it just wasn't a good fit.
No, and I'm glad that you said that because I guess what you said that you wanted to license the product, it seems like that was what Lori wanted. But like you said, we didn't see that. I guess that portion of the pitch where you had maybe the second prototype. And obviously, if you're trying to build a business and not, a business, or I don't want to say a real business, but to the extent that you want to have some longevity and kind of really be around and kind of stake your claim, you want additional products. You don't just want, okay, even though the Busy Baby mat is kind of selling off the shelves, you want to have additional products to kind of really expand your product line. And if somebody's maybe not interested in the other product lines, but they just are interested in, I guess, the main one, then I can. Yeah.
And I wanted to do more character licensing, like where we put different characters or things on the products to, have Disney themed or, whatever, something like that.
Got you. No, and that makes perfect sense. So then can you tell me about the pivot? Because it seems like you had, from a business standpoint, made an important decision to have a pivot. I think it was around the time maybe of COVID, from the expos and stuff like that maybe weren't going on as much during that time, to the social media marketing, which seemed like was a game changer for you.
Yeah, it totally was. When I first invented the product, we came to market in 2019. Because of my experience in the restaurant, my brain was all about, this is a great product and tool to take to restaurants to keep the babies busy when you're out to eat. Yep. And I think in January of 2020, I had just had my second baby, and I also got my products in retail packaging, and I was going to start going to stores to try and get my product in stores. And that's when COVID hit, and nobody was eating at restaurants, and all the stores were closed. So I quickly shifted. Some of the customers I already had started writing in about how convenient the products were at home. The mats could be used to distract a baby while you're on a Zoom call, or keep baby busy while you're homeschooling the other kids. It was just a really great tool to use at home. So I shifted all my marketing to the home uses for the products. And then the only thing I could spend, there was no more expos. Everything was canceled. So I took the little bit of budget that I had set aside for expos and I put it into Facebook ads, and it just took off.
I guess why do you think the Facebook ads I guess took off? Was it anything maybe that you can point to or specifically, or was it just like, hey man, this stuff just
No,
took
it's
off?
COVID. It was
Okay,
COVID.
so a lot more
Everybody was,
people were on social media then looking
yeah.
for this type of stuff. Nice.
Yeah, and everybody was shopping online. You couldn't go to stores anymore. And, with the retargeting, the targeting abilities back then, you could easily retarget people who had already searched baby things, who had baby interests. Now with privacy changes and in like Apple privacy changes, data privacy things that have changed over time, the social media marketing is not nearly as effective as it once was.
Mm-hmm. So is that still maybe a big portion of kind of what you're doing in sales in terms of the social media, or is it be another avenue at this point?
No, we're really trying to diversify. We've leaned on the social media significantly over the years, and it's not working as well as it used to.
Okay.
And so now we're going into retail stores because people are shopping at stores again. So if we're on the shelf at the store or in that category on, Walmart.com and Target.com, we're getting more eyeballs on our products there, and it's a more reputable place to be seen versus Facebook.
Nice. No, and that makes perfect sense. And it seems like I think maybe 2 years after the Shark Tank episode aired, and just kind of give the audience an idea of how maybe successful the product was. I think maybe had $5 million in revenue 2 years after. I'm not sure if it was 2023 or 2 years after that.
Yeah, we haven't hit 5 yet in 1 year. Okay. We're over total. We're over 12 total now, maybe over 14. Nice. Yeah, we went from 100,000 in my first year going expo to expo. And then the second year which was 2020, I did about $1 million. Then the next year was the Shark Tank year. We did just under 4 million. And so it's been just gradually growing now since then.
Nice. So then I guess, with your brother, kind of bringing him back into the picture, because again, you guys seems like really tight, but I guess you had to convince him to maybe at least at some point in time in the past quit his job and kind of come help you out full time. How was that conversation? And I guess, were you nervous? Because it seems like that's a pretty big thing to say, hey, quit the job. I got you. Come on board and let's get this going. I know if my brother asked me that, I'll maybe look at him crazy depending on what he has going on. So,
even though we're 4 years apart, our birthdays are right next to each other, July 9th and 10th. And since we were in our late teens, we've been very, very close. I got him to join the military. I had been in for a few years, convinced him to join. We ended up serving together in Iraq. We ended up serving together in Germany. So we had a lot of things that we keep ending up together. And so when he started his family is when I decided to move back to Minnesota so that I wouldn't miss out on that. And so he had 4 kids and a great job in a retail store. He was at the time a store manager for Dick's Sporting Goods and had a really great career. He was really good at it. And I was in Vegas, quarantined in a hotel, getting ready to record for Shark Tank. So since I filmed during the pandemic, there was a lot of COVID protocol. I literally was trapped in a hotel room for 8 days, could not leave the room. Took multiple COVID tests to make sure that, it was safe.
Right.
And so the only thing I could do was FaceTime my family. And so I practiced my pitch and FaceTime my brother, and sales were already starting to increase before Shark Tank. And I just thought I said to him, if this gets aired, I'm going to need help. And I need the kind of help that costs like $100,000 a year kind of salary help. And I don't trust people.
Got you.
Like, how am I going to hire the right person that's going to cost me that much money when I don't know them and I don't know if I can trust them? I don't know if they have the expertise. And then certainly they don't know me. Right. Sometimes I can be a handful. And nobody knows me better than my brother. Yeah. And so jokingly, I told him, you should quit your job and sell your house. He lives about an hour away from me. And at the time, they were renting out their house a lot and staying in their camper, him and his 4 children and his wife. Okay. I said, you guys just bring your camper to my house, live on my property out of your camper, sell your house, and just help me for a couple of years with this business. And then we'll sell it, and then you can go do whatever. And we were joking. And then a few weeks into it, it's like, actually, no, we really could. You really could quit your job and help me, and we could do this together. And so that's eventually what did happen. He didn't want to leave the retail store hanging during Q4 for holiday season. So he gave them 90 days notice. It just said after the holiday is done, I'm going to help my sister with her business. And he left Dick's and came to Busy Baby. And now
Nice.
3.5 years later, he's still here.
Well, it seems like it all worked out. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I mean, I think working with friends or family, it's never as easy as you think it should be. You know, on paper, we got along great. We've been by each other's side through all kinds of things in life. But running a business is a different situation. So it's been a roller coaster.
And that's actually a pretty good point that you made. Do you think that has helped the relationship? Because it seemed like you guys beforehand was really close. Do you think it's helped with that relationship, or I don't want to say hurt it, but
I think in the end it's made us stronger as people, because when we've gotten into situations where things are hard and, you know, it turned out we both operate very differently. So we've never had to operate in a professional capacity together.
Sure.
And so when we bring the professional capacity and how we function within our jobs and our roles, we learn and execute different than one another. And I just assume he's like me because we're so much like each other, but he doesn't function the same way as me. So I can't have the same expectations that he's going to work through something in the same way I do. But because we love each other, because we said from the beginning, like, no matter what happens, this business cannot divide us in any way. And if we ever get to a point where it's like, that's going to be a problem, we had to have hard, mature conversations with each other. And it was very awkward at first. And it saved us, and it saved the business, and it saved our relationship. And now we're both stronger as siblings and business partners because of it.
No, and that's a great point, because I have some real estate that I own, and just trying to, maybe an older sibling, him helping out with kind of doing some renovations, and first couple properties. Seems like we just weren't on the same page, but heck, I'm kind of forking out the money, and it's my house, so I don't want to say I'm not asking for you to kind of provide input, but at the end of the day, I guess this is, again, it's my house and it's my money that I'm giving you to help kind of renovate things. So if I'm kind of want it done this way, unless it's something like that is very wrong with this way of doing things, I kind of expect it to be done this way. So after a couple of times of him kind of doing maybe what he wanted to do, it was like, man, I'd rather just hire somebody else and save my relationship with my brother, as opposed to kind of fall out with you and have that fractured relationship. Yeah. And unfortunately, man, we're still cool, but it seems like maybe had the opposite effect anyway, because it's like, okay, so you're not going to use me for your property, then I feel some type of way as a
for sure. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, because you want to, and I think in a perfect scenario, in a perfect world, we want to, like you said, I can't trust anybody besides you. And I would say that differentness of thinking can kind of help the business out, because you're providing, I guess, two different perspectives on something, as opposed to maybe the same perspective, which you have the same blind spot. It's almost like, okay, if you have two engineers starting a business, as opposed to maybe an advertising person and an engineer, then you guys can kind of maybe balance each other out well, and especially if you trust this person or whatnot. But like you said, with the family, it's an interesting situation, because, like you said, I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sibling for the business. So I wish my situation maybe turned out more akin to yours. But
it's hard work. Yeah. It's hard work, and it's awkward. It's uncomfortable, and you got to set ego aside, and it's tough. But
no, so and you mentioned, I guess maybe, okay, we're gonna, at least at the beginning when you were kind of pitching to your brother, hey, we're gonna operate this thing for a couple of years and then sell it and then go about our business. So I guess now with the expansive product line, I'm assuming that you're still coming out with even more products. Is it more so like we're going to hold on to this thing for a little while longer, or maybe forever, and continue to run it? Or is it, okay, if the right price came along, then we really make some serious decisions as it relates to selling and kind of going on and do something else?
Yeah. I mean, there's always a dollar. There's always an amount that you're willing to give something up for. The intention always was to grow it and sell it. And there was a period of time when online businesses, during COVID, right after COVID, were selling like hotcakes at huge multipliers. Yep. That's not the case anymore. We still love what we're doing. We're not burnt out. It's still exciting. We do want to exit eventually, but we want to build it up to a value that makes sense for us to exit.
No, and that makes perfect sense. Well, yeah, it seems like during that COVID time, that was, like you said, definitely the hot time where the business selling like hotcakes at crazy multipliers. I have a buddy who I graduated law school with. Well, we started law school together. He ended up transferring and graduating from Georgetown, but he's an M&A attorney, and he does mergers and acquisitions, and kind of tells me about his stories and kind of what's going out there in the different multiples that different companies are.
Yeah, it was the Wild West for a while.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people made a ton of money during that time period, but I guess it's still money to be made post COVID. So that's cool. So then I guess maybe what was one of the biggest breakthrough, would you say, with the business? Was it Shark Tank? Was it another thing? I know you said you were selling and started to kind of pick up in sales even prior to Shark Tank, which I think is amazing and interesting at the same time. But I guess what would you say up until this point in time with the business, what was the biggest breakthrough?
I think it was pivoting the marketing to being a all around use, not just going out to eat kind of use, like being forced to change the perspective of what the product's for and how we market it. That was probably the biggest. Shark Tank, I thought was going to be life-changing. I thought it was going to be this just amazing thing. And all it turned out to be was like a 2-week marketing event. About 2 weeks after I'd aired, somebody saw me doing the demo and they're like, wow, that's really smart. You go on Shark Tank. And it's like, I literally was just on Shark Tank 2 weeks ago. Like, nobody remembers. Like, there's very few companies that are memorable enough from Shark Tank that people like know that they were Shark Tank. Right. So it was, for 2 weeks we got this extra exposure, and that was cool. Didn't make a deal, so there was no further communication with any of the investors or anybody at the show. But I did meet, and I'm friends with now a few hundred people who have been on the show themselves. And so it's like this network of peers that we're all going through the same grind. We all had that same experience of preparing for and doing Shark Tank, and we lean on each other and support each other as best we can. That's
and I was going to say, I interviewed Megan Wolfgram, who had Swift Paws, I think it was, the dog lore course, and I had her on maybe a couple months ago, and she talked about how just the group chats that you guys are in, and kind of that being something that's something that she cherishes and has been a game changer, because if maybe one of you guys are having problems as it relates to copycats and things like that, you guys can maybe respond in a group or type of message in a group and see if anybody has the answer to it. So that definitely seems like that maybe in and of itself is maybe worth going on. I guess in addition to the exposure, even though it seems like what you're saying, the exposure is kind of hit or miss depending on maybe what the product is or the business is. Right. Now, I guess on the flip side of that, what would you say was the biggest challenge regarding the business? Was it COVID? And I would imagine that going through that time period for all businesses that were able to make it through COVID, seems like it gives you a little bit more confidence that you can do it if you're able to make it through that tough time, which everybody was scrambling and kind of running around like a chicken with their heads cut off. What was the biggest challenge up until this point with the business?
The biggest challenge is cash flow. And in this place where it's actually right now is the biggest challenge. We're in this place where we're not a small startup anymore, but we can't afford big brand strategies. Yep. So we're like in this messy middle place where the cash flow is mostly tied up in inventory and marketing is so expensive. And like, how do we break through this kind of like ceiling of where we're at? And so for us, it's hopefully this retail expansion we're in the middle of, and some niche marketing. We're focusing on pediatric occupational therapists, pediatric professionals, because they use our products with the kids in their therapy. So right now is the most challenging time, I would say.
No, and that's interesting. And it seems like I was talking to Raquel Graham, who was also on Shark Tank, and it seems like that's definitely maybe a thing that mid-sized companies, I would say, have to kind of work through, as far as like you said, not having maybe just a ton of cash flow or a lot of it being wrapped up in inventory. So it seems like, hey, I guess that's the balance of business. But it seems like you guys are doing some cool things and maybe some innovative things to try to help out with that, which I'm sure will work out in the end. So I guess maybe as kind of wrapping up here in a little bit, you said you have 8 different products?
Patented products. Yeah. We have a line. We have other stuff we sell on the website too, but of our invented products, there's 8 of them.
Nice. So is it anything that's new on horizon as it relates to maybe additional products that you guys are looking forward to coming out with, or is it just, hey, let's try to do maybe a better job of selling what we currently have on the website and selling our current products at this point in time?
Yeah, we're doing some modifications to our current products. So there's a lot of, now that we're learning more about these uses, these pediatric professionals, how they're using it for, kids with autism and kids with cerebral palsy and a ton of other, issues, adding more features to the products, sensory bumps to add for those kids that need sensory things. And we're working more on bundles. So we've came out with the mat, and then we came out with the spoon, and then we came out with another thing and another thing and another thing. And once Christmas of 22, we decided to run a sale where you could bundle all the things together, save 20% and get the whole kit, because it's all interchangeable. And that sale went so well that we decided to make bundles a permanent fixture.
Nice.
And so now we're working on just even packaging bundles together in unique ways, or creating unique, so we're not really coming out with anything new. There's one more thing I want to create. I just don't have the solution yet.
Okay.
The problem. So I'm still noodling on how to add one more item to the lineup, but otherwise we're going to just sell what we have.
Gotcha. And it definitely seemed like the Army kind of really helped out as far as kind of being able to figure out solutions to problems quickly, and just being able to pivot and be creative with selling or advertising, marketing, different things. Because it seems like you guys definitely have done some creative things to, I guess, kind of provide solutions to problems at different points in your time. I guess I'd ask every guest this: what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? I'm sure that it's a ton of aspiring entrepreneurs that watch the show, and they're kind of doing the double dutch thing, where they're trying to kind of get into the game, but they, for one reason or another, hesitant or maybe scared, or just maybe don't know, I guess, where to start. What advice would you give to those aspiring entrepreneurs?
I have a couple pieces of advice I share with everybody who I mentor. One is to figure out who's your target customer.
Okay.
And go talk to them, the strangers, not your friends, not your family. So for me, it would be a mom at Target who's got to be in her cart, and go tell them, just, politely interrupt to say, excuse me, I know this is weird. I'm a stranger, but I have this idea for a product. And, my friends and my family think it's cool, but I want to talk to somebody who doesn't know me and see what you think. And talk to strangers, whoever it is that would be, your target market, and tell them your idea and see what they say, because your friends and family are going to, for the most part, be supportive of you and be nice to you. You're going to get the truth from someone who doesn't know you. Then my next advice is to conduct a patent search to make sure it doesn't already exist before you spend $1. I mean, you could maybe spend, I think I spent a couple $100 creating my prototypes by, just buying some stuff off of Amazon and cutting and gluing things together. But before you spend any significant money,
right, make
sure it doesn't already exist, or, just, and it's worth paying for the professional search. And then, I think those are my first main 2 steps.
Okay.
To anyone who's got an idea. Make sure there's a market fit, make sure there's market demand, and make sure it doesn't already exist.
Oh, for sure. And I agree with everything that you just said. I guess maybe, and piggyback off of the patentability search point, would you say it's important to develop some type of, I don't want to say global IP strategy? It seems like that's kind of this big fancy thing, but some type of IP strategy at the beginning prior to selling things, as far as what countries you think you're going to go into, or whether or not a PCT application is needed? Or is that something that maybe is not so much? Because I know, as you talked about earlier, it is kind of these deadlines that's out there with the intellectual property, with the patents that you have to meet, or else you're not going to be able to go file and protect the invention in different countries. So I guess, is that something that you should maybe be thinking about at the beginning, or maybe kind of wait till a little later on in the process? Obviously, you hit the deadline, but how early on or later on in the process should you at least be thinking about this stuff?
I think that's your job as the patent attorney, to inform the entrepreneur, because as the entrepreneur, human nature, our brain doesn't see how big something could actually get. No. A lot of people that I mentor have a product around here that they they look at it as kind of a local thing, and they get it made in the local shop, and they have their local customers. And I'm thinking, this is an amazing product. You could be selling this nationwide. You could be selling this worldwide. Yeah. But because that scope is so huge and overwhelming, our brains want to protect us and keep us to what's safe and not so challenging and scary. So, there's no way, even, as a new entrepreneur, there's no way I would have ever guessed that my idea was something that could be sold worldwide. Yeah. And it just would not even, and I wouldn't even it would have been my patent attorney who would have said, and my patent attorney he did say, you should probably consider the PCT. And at the time, I still didn't have the confidence that the product was going to be what it became. So,
and that's interesting, because that was going to be my follow-up question of how much should you listen to the patent attorney? And obviously this stuff is not just black and white. There's a lot of gray area as it relates to cost and things like that. Because as you talked about, your patent attorney mentioned it, and I'm not sure what your, calculus was, but I know I interviewed Nancy Tedeschi, who had to snap and screw for your eyeglasses. And she said that her attorney not forced her, but just short of forced her to get a patent application in China, because that's where she was manufacturing. The thing, as a patent attorney, we're going to always tell you, where are you going to sell it? Where are you going to manufacture it? Where do you see this thing being manufactured? We're trying to kind of fill out that process and say, hey, maybe you should think about protecting it in those countries. But ultimately, that decision is up to the client at that point. But I guess in Nancy Tedeschi's case, she listened to her patent attorney and got it filed, and got a patent in China, and it paid dividends because she was able to successfully, because that's what she was manufacturing the product. She was able to successfully prevent infringers from manufacturing a product and go to court. And she talked about how it was a fraction of the cost of U.S. litigation, and how that was a big game changer for her, and how she thinks our patent attorney all the time that I don't want to say made her, but more or less made her get.
Strongly suggested. Yeah. I think any new first time entrepreneur, that's going to be a tough sell. But now, if I come up with some other new idea that I'm going to patent, I'll probably do the PCT for sure.
Yeah. And that it's a little bit more expensive at the beginning, but it gives you more time to kind of make some decisions on what countries you want to go off into. So then I guess maybe the last question is, how can they follow you? How can they purchase the product and just kind of stay kind of locked in on Busy Baby and everything that you guys are doing over that way?
Yeah. So Busy Baby Matt on all the socials. And then you can find us on busybaby.com. But I think more helpful to us as a business right now is going to target.com, because when you enter into retail, you need to have some sales velocity going through to continue to grow and do well in retail. So I would say, and then we're onboarding with Walmart right now. So, going to Walmart or Target to look for Busy Baby products, or busybaby.com is great too.
And then is it on Amazon at all, or?
Yeah, we are on Amazon. Amazon takes 40% of every order. So we don't promote that. Yeah, they take a huge chunk. So we're on Amazon. It's a necessary evil, because that's where people shop. That's where people go Google products. I need something, I'm going to go to Amazon, just Google it on Amazon. So we have to be there, but they take a lot. So we never purposefully send people there. But yes, we are there, and it's a great, even if you don't have a baby, if you know anyone having a baby, it's a great baby shower gift.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like this thing would be perfect for baby showers. I guess as far as the registries and whatnot, I'm not sure how that all goes, or with, Target or Walmart. Is it kind of more so on the person who having a baby, as opposed to, I guess Target and Walmart? I'm not sure if there's any link or connection there, but it definitely seems like this would be a perfect baby shower gift.
Oh yeah. That's the best feedback we get, is from people who get it for baby showers, because the new parent doesn't actually know that problem yet, because they don't have the infant dropping and throwing everything. But anyone who's ever had a kid is like, oh my gosh, where was this thing when my kids were little? I still remember that, constantly dropping and throwing and picking up everything. And so we get emails from people saying, I was the hit of the baby shower, because no one's heard of it. And as soon as they pull it out and figure out what it is, everybody's like, oh my God, that's so smart. And so yeah, great baby shower gift.
Oh, for sure. And that's why I love the product and idea so much, just because you talked about earlier having that demand, and being in an area that has a demand, and whether it's here in the U.S. or abroad, is not going to be a shortage of babies being made. So this is something that's always going to be a thing. It's not like this a seasonal product or whatever the case may be. This thing will be something that is still valuable and applicable regardless of what time of the year or what geographical region you are in the world. So
all babies drop all their stuff. And babies need to be born.
I have a 6-year-old, and when I came across this, I was one of those people to say, "Where was this thing where I was? My kid was a toddler." You know, God willing, it'll be future kids, and I'll definitely get this thing and all that'll be good in the world. So definitely go get it, audience members. I'll put those links down when the video comes out, when the interview comes out. Definitely go check out the product, go purchase the product. Heck, even if you don't have any kids, or go purchase it for someone else who's maybe having kids as a baby shower gift, as we talked about. This thing is a game changer, and hopefully you all enjoyed the interview. Until next time, take care.